know, this is a voluntary session, so none of you really had to be here, and but it's always nice to have people on there because if there's nobody on and I turn on the recording to capture a session, even though I'm basically doing the same thing I would otherwise, you have no idea how uncomfortable it is kind of just chatting to a screen knowing that there's nobody actually there. So it's nice to have a decent group of people listening in. So what I like to start with is that I want to go just make sure we have a decent introduction to SPSS. I'll be making the first homework available probably on Tuesday after we come back. You guys can have a nice weekend and not worry about it. I'll also be doing a session like this on Thursday, even if we don't have a class on Monday. That homework will have some stuff. It'll be due not the following Friday, but the one after that. So you'll have an extra couple of weeks. You have a week and a half at least after that. But the next session, we're going to be covering a little bit of probability, some other things that are going to wind up that are on that homework. I'm going to make it available on Tuesday so that you can get a look at it. There will be stuff that we haven't covered on it yet. So if you see stuff that is not familiar, don't worry about it. Also, the syllabus is pretty rigorous on homework in terms of losing points and so on and so forth. I'll stick to that in some, if people don't do the homework, I'll stick to that idea of point loss, but I have a special policy where homeworks are concerned. And the deal there is that if you submit an attempt at the homework, even if you get 50%, even if you really don't understand the material, but you made the effort to do the homework, you made at least an honest effort to give it a try, and you submit it before the due date, anytime for the rest of the semester, you can go back and redo that homework. Okay, you can redo it 5 times. I had students in other previous classes where they would do a homework and get 40% on it, and then come back, do it again, get 60%, come back, do it again, get 75, and eventually wind up with 100% on that homework, maybe after 5 or 6 or even 7 tries, right? Hopefully you won't be in that situation. You maybe will make a mistake or two and then be able to come back and correct it. The good thing about that is, for me, is that it encourages you to keep up. And when you guys keep up with the course and don't fall behind and don't do homeworks and stuff like that, it makes it much more difficult for me to manage people that are in different stages in this course and need more help or less help and so on and so forth. The good thing for you is that if you do that, if you at least give it a try and keep up, that it means that you almost ensure yourselves of getting 100% on the homework portion of your grade. That's 30% of your grade. So that means that if you slip up a little bit on the midterm, or you have a little bit of a problem on the exam, on one of the exams or something like that, that it makes it recoverable for you. You have that cushion with such a good grade on the homework and so on. So just keep that in mind, that when the homework's there, this first homework will probably be done 3 weeks in, because we really only have 2 classes in that period. And there'll be some elements of it that we'll cover the next time we meet. So when I make it available, don't freak if there's stuff on there that you haven't seen before. There's a couple of things I want to do, since I don't have any specific questions that have come up so far. And you can post questions now in the chat box if you want me to cover something specific. But number one, I'd like to go back over SPSS and give you a feel for how you do work in SPSS. The first homework will ask you to do a problem, to complete a problem using Excel, and it'll have another problem that you'll have to complete using SPSS. Reason why I do that in the first homework is that means that I know by week 3, by just before week 3, when the homework is done, that for homework is due, that I know that you have SPSS, have access to it somehow or other, and that you could do at least the basic, very basic work with it. Okay, I'm going to show you something that like might kind of be similar to what you might see in the homework, that first homework, to give you an idea of how SPSS works. So for starters, I'm going to open up a SPSS data set. I'm going to go to SPSS on my computer. It's a little bit of a slow program to open. Okay, here we go. I'm using version 24. Somebody asked me about if they could use version 16. Be honest with you, for the stuff that we're doing, there really is almost no difference between version 16 and version 24. Maybe graphically it looks a little bit different, but the layout is the same. So you could use basically any version. The only thing that's changed a little bit is the data formatting. Okay, and most of the time I'll be giving you data in a form that will open in almost any version of SPSS. If you have a problem opening it because it says that version of the data is not compatible, perhaps because it's too new for your older version, or vice versa, if it's too old for your new version. If you have any problem with that, can't open it, let me know and I'll make sure I provide it in forms that everybody can make sure they can open it. Yeah, I think 25 is lazy. Yeah, fine. 20, 22, 23, 24. Any version is fine. The only caveat is that for our class, BIOS 610 and BIOS 611, the main difference from them is that students in BIOS 610 are typically taking the course as a prerequisite for taking other materials such as epidemiology and some other public health courses and so on and so forth. 611 is typically students that will be taking additional, more advanced statistics courses. So the material offered in 611 is, for often 90%, 99% of it is the same. 5 or 10% of it might be a bit more advanced than we cover. One of the areas that we're going to cover towards the end of the semester is correlation and regression. That's where you try and find an association between two variables that are both numerical variables. For instance, it seems to, those of you that have lived in New York for a long time know that very often the price of getting on the subway correlates with the price of a slice of pizza, right? So there's a very strong correlation. We'll actually demonstrate that later on this semester. So to attempt to prove that that correlation is real and not due to chance, we can use things like correlation and regression analysis. And because both of those are numerical variables, both of them are prices, as a matter of fact. Now, there's a special form of regression that you can use with a categorical variable and a numerical variable. In other words, perhaps there's a association between gender and blood pressure readings or something like that, and rather than use other forms of analysis, you might apply a regression analysis for a number of reasons, but we'll get to that later on. Or maybe something to do with a true or false kind of situation. In other words, for instance, got a flu shot, didn't get a flu shot. That's kind of a logical choice. Yes or no, true, false, kind of a logical choice. Two choices there. Okay. And there's a form of regression called logistic regression, where you can use that tool to evaluate a numerical variable, association of a numerical variable with a logical choice, like true or false, yes or no, gender, male or female, and so on. That logistic regression is not available in the base version, in the SPSS Grad Pack base version, but is available in the SPSS Grad Pack standard version. The difference in price is about 15 or 20 bucks. I think the base version is 40. The standard version, which has logistic regression, is about 55 or 60. So about a $15, $20 difference. In this course, we'll be introducing logistic regression, but I won't expect you to solve any problems or answer any exam quizzes or exam questions or anything like that. Using logistic regression, you'll get exposed to it, but in the 611, so you have the choice. If you'd like to get the more expensive version and be prepared to maybe do your own exercises with it, or maybe even apply it to a project or something, you might consider a slightly more expensive version. If you were in 611, then we go into towards the end of the semester, we actually do some exercises where we apply it. So for those guys, it probably makes sense for them to get slightly more expensive versions.